All right, Mafia, Washington State, Oregon State. You said in August, I don't mean to pin you on it, but 99% chance you thought they were Big 12 bound. Is there still a window of opportunity for those two schools with the way the TV deal may be reworked in the event of an implosion of the ACC? As you can see, it's a tough path to get to, but is there hope for those two schools?
Well, at the end of the day, when we were talking about it in the summer, the thought was that they would win the lawsuit, or they would settle the lawsuit. The Pac-12 would cease to exist, and using those assets, they could basically leverage their way. And you could say it the SMU way. Maybe we'll just start calling everything SMU if it's that way. But you basically say, we're going to give you money, and we'll take a reduced buyout to be in your conference. The profiles for both schools fit the Big 12 very well. The problem is they've already exploded into the West, and they picked up 6 new schools in 2 years, and that's a whole region that got flip-flopped. So now you got people out on the East Coast that aren't very happy, and I totally understand why. Cincinnati and UCF are great additions for West Virginia, but it's not enough. So they're leaning east, and I think the regionality part of it is the piece that I thought maybe could be circumvented through some negotiation and some other things. And I was wrong. I that's just something that, I made a guess on, and I read it wrong.
Tell you this, it's as if there's an orphanage, right? 10, 12, 14 orphans all sitting around, and 2 of them took control of all of the food. Right. And right now, Washington State and Oregon State, since the headmaster gave them control of who gets the food, they've taken all of it. In a recent development, they're not giving out the sum that is owed to the Pac-12 teams based on that grant of rights. But since those teams breached the grant of rights, they technically don't have to give that money away. Now, the schools are arguing that this hurts student athletes. Where do you sit with this, and where is it going to get us now that Washington State and Oregon State are making their first big move as those that control the assets?
Well, let's be very clear. It's not in a contract written that they were supposed to get that money. It's been a traditional thing. And over time, that payment has been paid out, kind of a stipend as you go through the year, because these schools have to have operating budget. But it's not written into a contract anywhere. They're claiming that by making this move, by stopping something that was an honorarium, in essence, by doing that, it's breaking the judge's rule when he put in the temporary restraining order. They're going to go to the judge, and they're going to argue, see, we told you they were going to do this. We told you they were going to try to take everything and shut us out. And the Pac-Two at that point would just say, no, we're not. All we want to do is just keep what's in here, because we still don't know what all our liabilities are. They still don't know what the Comcast amount is. We've heard anywhere from $50 to $80 million. They need to settle that before they negotiate any settlement with the schools that are leaving. Because the minute they're out the door, now you're begging them to give the money back rather than holding on to it and not giving it to them in the first place. And if you've been around a parent, whether you were a parent or you've been a kid, you know what it's like when you're the one that has control. There's no reason to give that up just for the heck of it.
Yep. And in this scenario, it should be clear, all the other orphans have been adopted.
That's right. They have homes. Yep.
They're just staying in the orphanage for an extra couple of weeks while the paperwork processes.
That's exactly right.
That's an added part to this as well. So not the greedy ones holding on to all the food or the money here. They're doing what's best for the universities. Mafia, what's the best case scenario for those two schools? Is there any way they find their spot back in a power conference, or has that ship truly sailed at this point?
Well, again, unless something changes either on the settlement side for the lawsuit, which it looks like now is not going to be settled anytime soon. In fact, I think the 10 schools in the Pac-10 are willing to let the Pac-2 die on the vine. Yeah. So rather than that settlement, which we had anticipated being quicker, without that and the ACC making some mammoth change, and you have 2 to 4 schools leaving the ACC, they will be an invite to the ACC at the very least. Yeah. And probably, at the very most and the very least is them basically running an AAC Mountain West sort of subdivision.
With this, Washington State is profitable. That's the one thing I can't wrap my head around here is Washington State, from a viewership standpoint especially, has some TV luster. Right. Is there a way that an ESPN, a Fox, that anybody leaves that money on the cutting room floor and doesn't at least find that school in a conference, especially if TV deals are reworked with the Big 12, the ACC, and the like, given conference expansion's growth?
It's just a hard question to answer because Washington State, while their viewership numbers are good, they're $200 million behind in all their expenses. Their athletic department is bankrupt, and they had to cut back staff and all other resources for that program. So, people watch the games. I watch the games. But at the end of the day, that viewership dollar by itself isn't enough to sway some of these more, I would say, larger, bigger picture type concerns like regionality, making sure all your schools are aligned and saying the same thing. You don't have people pissing and moaning on the edges. And to do that, I think the Big 12 has said for us to become more healthy, we need to be more balanced. To be more balanced, we need 2 to 4 more schools in region. We're talking about the East or at least Central Time Zone.
Nathan Brown, Big 12 Mafia, thank you for joining Locked On Big 12. Where can folks find your show every week?
Well, underneath my signature there is my hashtag on Twitter, and then just do a search on YouTube, Big 12 Mafia. Just like I say it, look it up and you'll see our shows. We do shows between 4 and however many a week at times, but we cover realignment. We cover conference reorganization, a lot of the legal twists and turns. The reason we're able to have this conversation now is because of what we talking about all the time on Twitter and then on our shows. And we invite people to become a part of that and be with our family, as we call it. Drake, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm here for you anytime, and I can't wait to be back.
Absolutely. The thing I love about it, I they're the Thamels of the world and plenty of big time big wigs that do their research, sure. But some of these independent journalists and the guys who are in the trenches, in the weeds, asking the right questions and aren't getting paid by those big companies that have stake in this are the ones that are on top of it. And Mafia, you've been on top of it the whole way. And in the same way, not losing autonomy and still bringing opinions and takes to the forefront of this. So thank you for joining the show as always. And for those listening, thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. When we come back tomorrow, let's talk more about the Big 12 and where we look. When we take this football season, where do we go with this? Who are the big dogs? Who gets left behind? This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks again for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.
Peace.